Good morning.
Good morning.
Today's reading, Genesis 12, 10 to 20, page 13. Abraham in Egypt. The crops failed, and there was no food anywhere in the land. So Abraham and his wife Sarai went to live in Egypt for a while. But just before they got there, he said, Sarai, you are really beautiful. When the Egyptians see how lovely you are, they will murder me because I am your husband, but they won't kill you. Please save my life by saying that you are my sister. As soon as Abraham and Sarai arrived in Egypt, the Egyptians noticed how beautiful she was. The king's officials told him about her, and she was taken to his house. The king was good to Abraham because of Sarai, and Abraham was given sheep, cattle, donkeys, slaves, and camels. Because of Sarai, the Lord struck the king and everyone in his palace with terrible diseases. Finally, the king went to Abraham and said to him, what have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me Sarai was your wife? Why did you make me believe she was your sister? Now I have married her, take her and go. She's your wife. So the king told his men to let Abraham and Sarai take their possessions and leave. Amen.
All right, women out there in the audience, if he were your husband and he said, look, you're so beautiful. Oh, they're going to kill me. Hey, can't you just say you're my sister? And then I'll save my rear end, right? I'm looking at Stella right now.
No.
What if Jim had done that to you, Stella? You don't know?
Leave him in the desert.
How would you feel?
Leave him in the desert.
In the desert, I love that.
Why?
Yeah. I don't think too many women would appreciate that. Just for a guy to save his own back end to say, oh, you're so beautiful. So just say you're my sister. Then she that's like bigamy. Even then, back in those days, that would have been bigamy because even though a man can have many wives, the wife can't go and get married to some other guy while he's still alive. No, so that would have not been good.
She didn't have to marry him.
What?
She didn't have to marry the other guy.
She did.
No, she didn't, but she did though.
She married the
Because she wants to save her husband. Would you like him for your husband?
Well, you know what? I'd rather do that than see him get killed.
That could be true. That could be true. That is. The point, though, I'm trying to make is that in the Bible, we have a lot of heroes, don't we? We have the patriarchy, the patriarchs that are in Genesis. And they were like the foundation of our, you might say, our religious history, both the Jewish, the Christian, and the Muslim traditions. We see ourselves as children of Abraham. And we look to him because he was faithful. When he was told to leave, he didn't know where he was going. This was a strange place. They didn't have MapQuest or Navigator back in those days. And so off he goes and does what God asked him to do. So we look to him as a faithful person. We look to him as you might say, the foundation of three great faith traditions. But what I love about the Bible is that they don't paint our heroes as perfect people. And I'll go into some of the other ones that were our heroes, but far from perfect. On the other hand, when I was in school, particularly elementary school, we got fed all kinds of, I'll say, misinformation about our national heroes. How many people know the story of George Washington and chopping down the cherry tree?
It's a myth.
Historians have researched it. It was a fellow that wanted the children to really look up to their president. So that it was a made-up story. And I could just see it. Any of you who've been a kid in your life, and you did something like that, and mom or dad came to you and said, did you do it? What do most kids say?
My brother did it.
My brother, I love that. Yeah, my brother did it. No.
My sister did it.
So they paint this picture of George Washington as this perfect person, and he's he doesn't seem real. He's just such a goody, 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 goody. And then Abraham Lincoln. Honest Abe. I remember one story that I heard when I was in the 3rd grade, that he owed somebody a penny, and he had to walk 16 miles to return that penny. Another made-up story. He was a wonderful president. He did a lot of great things, but he wasn't perfect. On the other hand, we are privileged to have our Bible, because our heroes are far from perfect. How many people remember about Jacob and Esau? And Jacob cheats his brother out of his birthright, and then he does a whole bunch of other stuff too. And then he gets cheated by his uncle by marrying the older daughter and the younger one that he loves, and then he has to wait for her, and they're just going back and forth cheating each other. But then God worked through this family. And the 12 tribes of Israel can trace their heritage excuse me, through this family. One of the greatest heroes of all times in Jewish history was King David. Up to his time, Israel was not really an Israel. It was kind of a loose confederation of 12 tribes that often didn't even get along with each other. And so when they had, before kings, they had judges. And when they had a conflict of some kind, the judge would be there to let them know that this is the way we're going to solve this problem. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And then finally when King David came on the throne, it didn't happen overnight, but it was a period of talking to people and working with people and making compromises that he was finally able to unify all 12 tribes. And the country of Israel was formed under his leadership. He was a strong king. He also was a religious leader. He wrote psalms. He was very faithful to God in so many respects. He treated people kindly. He really watched out for the poor, and he really was a kind of king that was what you'd call benevolent. But he was also human.
Murderer, philanderer.
We all know the story of David and Bathsheba, right? Bad boy! Oh, gosh, I can't think of anything worse you could do. A real quick retelling of the story. There's this really very attractive woman next door to the king's place, and she's sunbathing. And he's looking up there going, wow! And of course he was married at the time. So he goes up there and gets acquainted, and then they get together. They knew each other, all right? And he said, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? She's married and her husband will get really upset. So he arranges it so that her husband, who's serving in his army, goes to the front line so they'll get killed, so that he can get at her. And of course, this is exactly what happens. Her husband gets killed. He takes her in his home, and God wasn't too happy about that. You know. And then the other story I remember of him, he had a drinking problem sometimes. How many people know that David had a drinking problem? And one time he got really snockered. And he had all, I don't know, he tore his clothes off and he said, I don't need clothes. And he's dancing there and all together. And his wife says, get in there. And I'm thinking, oh, David, you made a fool out of yourself. But he's one of our heroes. The Jews always looked to him as the model for a Messiah. He was a political leader, he was a military leader, and he was a spiritual leader, all wrapped up into one. But he was human, wasn't he? And he still was a hero, in spite of everything. I like it when we can look to people who might not have led perfect lives, who really have been heroes. And we can all be that way, because we don't have to be perfect. No one expects that of us. And the story that I wanted to share with you is one that my son Eric told me about what happened in Missouri. There were a group of Christians, and in this particular church, they always baptized people in the Missouri River. And they would be by the banks of the river. And, they'd be baptized in where the current isn't too strong. Well, so there were about 12 people there. And one of them that was being baptized was a young boy. And somehow he lost his footing. And he fell in there. It's not that he didn't know how to swim, but he didn't know how to swim very well. And the current was a little too heavy, and he starts going down the river, being washed away. And here are all these faithful people, the ones that are saying, I'm a Christian, and I'm kind of better than everybody. They just stood there. They didn't run and get their cell phones, or do anything. It was just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? A little bit down the bank there was a man who had been in prison, who had gotten in a lot of trouble, who quit school because it just wasn't his thing, who went from job to job, and let's just say he had a lot of problems in his life. He was not the kind of person that he necessarily lived up. When he saw that boy crying for help, he didn't think anything of it. He dove right in there, and it was a struggle. It wasn't an easy thing for him to do. But he was able to bring the kid to the shore. And then when they found out more about him, it almost reminds me of the story of the Good Samaritan. All the faithful people, all the people that claim to be Christians and follow in Jesus' footsteps, just stood there, kind of frozen, not knowing what to do. But this man, who had a whole life history of problems, didn't even think twice, and leaped in there and dove in and brought the boy back to shore. He was the hero of this story. What I think is so wonderful about Jesus is that he taught us the same thing. He taught us that we don't have to be perfect to be one of his followers. We don't always have to be doing the right thing, even though we'd love to, but sometimes we slip a little bit. What we learn from Jesus is that to be one of his followers, we have to accept each other. We have to love each other, and particularly unconditional love. And if we can do that, then we can all be heroes, and we definitely do not have to be perfect. Amen.
Amen.
I'm inviting